In this last clip of the first module, we will build two-sided and decal materials. While building them, we will look at the materials properties dialog box and talk more in detail about several material nodes. Finally, we will discuss a few use case scenarios and then give two key resources for further exploration. So before we jump in and get started, I want to optimize our work area a little bit by turning off the modes window on the left. That'll give us just a little bit more viewport space. If we need that again, we could just go under Window and turn that on. But let's turn that off for now. So the first thing that we're going to start with is build a two-sided material. And the best way of showing this is using the starter content shapes plane. So let's go down there under starter content, go to shapes, and just grab the plane and pull that into the viewport. Let's resize it a little bit. So let's just take a quick look at this. It's visible from the front, and if we rotate it, it's invisible on the back. Okay, what's going on here? The best way to see that is if we double click on the static mesh and open up the static mesh editor. The static mesh editor, that's full screen, has the ability to visualize the normals. So the way surface geometry in Unreal is shaded is it is shaded with the surface normal direction going up. And then typically we have geometry that is not just single-sided. However, there are times when you're going to plan on using geometry that is single-sided. If you did bring a piece of geometry from an external modeler and it had invisible holes, that would be a good clue to take a look at your surface normals in Unreal. And possibly some of your normals would be flipped and you would want to go in and fix them in sort of the modeling program. Okay, but let's just build a two-sided material in Unreal because that's our plan. We are going to go to Materials. Let's right click, make a material. We'll call this M, two-sided. Let's open this up and let's bring in two textures. We'll bring in a brick texture and we'll bring in the grass. Okay, let's full screen. So now, first, let's just plug in the base color. And we can visualize on a primitive plane here. So we're getting the same result that we were in the viewport. It's not visible on two sides. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to simply select the base material node and turn on two-sided. So now if we look at the back, it's shading well on both sides. Excellent. Let's zoom out a little bit here. And what I want to do is I want to make a material that has one material on one side and the grass on the other. So how do we do that? Well, we can do that by using a linear interpolation node. We'll talk about the lerp in another module, so let me hold down the L key and click to create one. And we're going to just unhook this for the moment. And then we'll plug texture sample 1 into A, texture sample 2 into B. And then we need something to define the difference between these in this alpha channel. Typically, the alpha would just blend transparency between these two, but we actually want it to specify that it's shading this with the direction of one surface normal and the opposite direction of the other surface normal. That's done using a two-sided sine node. So if we just type in sine, you can see two-sided sine. Let's plug that in to the alpha, and then let's plug that into the base color. Okay, we can see the grass on one side, and I'm seeing what looks like bricks in transparency on the other. Let's try swapping these. And that could be because the grass has some sort of transparency pre-built into it. Let's try plugging in them in the other direction and see if that helps. Excellent. So now you also know that there's other possible issues that you could run into, and then you might just switch the A and the B on the lerp. Excellent. Okay, so let's hit apply. Let's drop that onto the plane in our level. So here's our two-sided material. Bricks on one side, grass on the other. Excellent. Okay, quickly now let's build a decal material. So let's right-click and create another material. We'll call this M, decal. Before we quickly build the decal, let's quickly talk about use case scenarios. So there's a use case scenario you're probably most familiar with. Can you think of it? In games, there's always bullets flying, and the decal is the bullet hole that shows up in the wall and then disappears. So why don't we do something similar with a bullet hole? Let's quickly go to textures and import. We'll grab the bullet hole targa and the normal map that I made really quickly, and we'll just save all. Okay, so we'll open up our decal and we'll drag those in. Shift click, drag. Let's plug it in. Zoom out a little bit. We'll plug this into the normal and plug this into the base color. So let's quickly switch this to material domain is now a deferred decal. And then it gets some code hinting that we need to switch the deferred decal to blend mode translucent. So let's do that. Blend mode translucent here. So now we should start seeing some of this. And let's switch to a cube to visualize it. The other thing that we need is we want to get some opacity. And so I built a alpha channel into this texture here, so we can take this and plug that into the opacity. Great, so that's helping. Let's just take that, hit apply. Let's close the material editor and switch over to Unreal. Okay, so now that we're back in Unreal, let's grab one of our decal materials and drop it into the scene. Okay, it's coming in a little large, so let's go over to the scale and set that to about 0.2. Okay, that's a little bit better. Now let's just see how it interacts with the world. First, let's drag it a little bit over the base of this statue. As you can see, it's projecting pretty much onto the floor, but it also projects onto nearby objects with the settings that we have. Okay, let's drag it over to this big wall over here. And let's just nudge it in and up. And let's take a look at the result we're getting. So you can see that if you have it rotated in the wrong direction, you'll get a completely unusable result. So let's hit the E key and rotate this 90 degrees. Okay, much better. All right, the other thing that I want to do is just visualize this a little bit better. So I could hit play and see it in game, or I could also hit the G key, which will toggle game mode visualization on and off, which is nice. So I think we can improve the look just a tiny bit. Let's select and double click our decal actor. And let's just add a little bit of additional roughness to this. So I'm going to hold down the 1 key and click. And we'll just drop that into the roughness parameter. And a 0 would give us an extremely shiny result, as if we were shooting into something chrome, maybe chipping off the paint. Maybe that's not what we want for this example. Let's go in the complete opposite direction and make it an extremely rough value. So we'll set that to 1. Okay, nicer. Much better. Okay, the final thing that I want to point out, let's select the base material node, is that there's a huge number of options under the decal blend mode beyond what we've talked about. And I'm going to refer you to some documentation that Unreal has provided so that as you get more into doing decals and as we wrap up this first module, you have a bunch of resources that you can access. But before we do that, let's just take a look at our decal in the world. So let's hit apply. Let's go back to the first person here and let's visualize it. Hit G. Nice. Even better than before. All right, wonderful. So let's switch over to those resources, then wrap up this module. So here we are in the Unreal documents. The decals reference page that I'm providing for you, if we scroll down, you can see it has a bunch of additional examples that it's referencing. Now this is a really great reference page, as well as the next one. This is on material nodes. As we scroll down, you can see that you can go in and read more about each of the different parameters that we've talked about in this module. Now, in addition to reading about these, this first two tabs, if we go into the Unreal Launcher, so let's switch over to that quickly. Now, if you go to the Learn tab, this Content Examples will download a series of files where you can actually view all of those examples that I just showed in those two tabs. Okay, great. So let's switch over to the final tab that I had as a reference. And this is the Unreal Material Properties page. So this is really great as a reference for all of these different properties that we've been talking about. And this is a great place to start to go further as either some reading or as something as a reference page. Okay, great. So let's wrap up this clip and wrap up this module. In this clip, we've built a double-sided material, and we've also talked about other material types, and then we built a decal material. And overall in this module, we've talked about the material creation process, the Unreal interface. We've gone over input basics for metallic and roughness, opacity masks, emissive materials. We've talked about the organization of your materials, naming conventions and commenting, material IDs, and UVs. So this is going to wrap up this module. We'll see you in the next one.